Hello?
Hi, Derek.
Can you hear me?
Barely. I may need to turn my sound up.
No, I don't have my webcam in the office. I'm using my headset.
Oh. How are you? When do you have to leave? Momentarily.
In a little bit.
Okay. So logistically, I can let people in, right? When they show up, I have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I'll make you co-host and I'll probably make Aaron host.
Okay.
But what I'll do before then, or you can do, as it gets closer to the time, let me make you co-host now.
Okay, I think we will start. Want to welcome everybody to this event. The Berks Alliance sponsors monthly community forums on the third Thursdays of the month. We're doing this one on what used to be tax day, but that's all changed because of COVID. We try to do these around important things for the community to be involved in, or for our local community to be involved in, to understand. This one, I think.
I want to grab a snack.
This one.
Grab one for me too.
Yeah. This one builds on something we did last fall in creative placemaking, where we're talking about farmers markets and their impact on community development. We have a few ground rules that we impose for this. We will ask you to stay muted while our presenters are presenting. If you have a question or a comment, please enter them on the chat function. You'll find the chat function at the bottom of the screen. You can enter them. We will collect those and ask the questions if we have time at the very end of the program. We will have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, or fairly hard stop. Sometimes we get a little soft around the edges, but we'll try to keep people on track with that. I want to mention we also have a community forum coming up on May 20th. It's called Focusing Forward, and it's a look at what the positive impact has been of COVID-19 on our public schools. We have 3 superintendents who will be joining us for that conversation. So hope this one's stimulating enough that you'll return for that one. I'm going to turn it over really briefly to John Weidenhammer, who's the chairman of the Berks Alliance, for his introduction as well.
Hi, Dave. Thanks so much, and welcome everybody. It's my job really to welcome you all to our monthly community conversation. I think we have a really terrific topic this time, so thanks for joining us for it. Also, a reminder that we do record all of these, at least since COVID began, we've been recording all of these sessions, and we post them on the Berks Alliance website, which you can find at www.berksalliance.org. And we also include in there some other videos that we've created, or access to them, so that you keep up to date on some of the things that the Berks Alliance is doing. But we really appreciate everybody's support. As you know, the Berks Alliance is really focused on a couple of things, mostly around the area of community development, but we're trying to improve the health, wealth, and education attainment of our community. We're focused on making sure that there's an adequate supply of living wage jobs, and also an adequate supply of people to fulfill those jobs. And we're especially concerned about having safe, clean, and green downtown. So again, thanks for joining us. Please join us every third Thursday of the month for these sessions. So Dave, back to you.
John, thank you. I have the privilege now of introducing Aaron Gantz. Aaron is a colleague who works at the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance and was instrumental in bringing this together and is very instrumental in the concepts of farmers markets and Reading in particular. Erin is going to moderate our event. She will be introducing the speakers, and she and I will figure out how to traffic the questions when we get to the very end of it. But Erin, you're on.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, everyone. Almost good afternoon. I'm really excited to also hear from our speakers this morning and kind of introducing this topic to everyone is two people I'm really excited to introduce, Kurt Wheeler and Kelly Verrill from the Project for Public Spaces. That is a global urban planning and design nonprofit that's based in New York City. Kurt Wheeler manages the Project for Public Spaces Public Markets program and dedicated to providing training and education, conferences, and consulting services to public market operators and other market stakeholders, which is actually how we got connected before the pandemic when we were kind of looking at exploring different things in our own community in Reading. Kurt began working for the Project for Public Spaces in 2014. Over the course of her time with the organization, she has managed a wide range of community placemaking projects, conducted research on public market and public space issues, and overseen project and conference outreach and communications. Kurt managed outreach and logistics planning for the last two international public markets conferences, London, United Kingdom in 2019 and Barcelona, Spain in 2015. As a trained urban planner, Kurt focused her master's research on the relationship between street vendors and brick and mortar businesses in New York City, and she continues to support local efforts to improve public policy support for vendors. Kelly Verrill is the Senior Director of Programs at the Project for Public Spaces and a member of their executive leadership team. Since 2006, Kelly has worked in the Public Markets program, directing all projects related to the planning, design, and development of public markets and the creation of the Market Cities Initiative. She also directs the program's education and training programs and the International Public Markets Conference. Prior to joining the Project for Public Spaces, she was the publicity associate at Green Market, which I'm sure some of us have heard about in New York City, the largest network of farmers markets, and still serves on their Farmer Community Advisory Committee. Her public markets career began in Western Massachusetts, where she was an apprentice farmer on an organic produce farm. Twice a week, she drove a box truck into Boston, Massachusetts to sell at the Copley Farmers Market, setting up the farm's stall display and helping introduce new vegetables and recipes to customers. So I'm really excited, based on their background and knowledge, to have them speak to us this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Erin. Kurt's just going to pull up our presentation and we'll begin. Okay, thank you, Kurt. So yes, thank you, Erin, for your introductions. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you so much to the Berks Alliance for having us at today's community forum on markets, and thank you for even having a community forum on markets. We're really excited about getting a chance to speak to your community. I spent a little bit of time in Reading a couple of years ago. I led a national Main Street training in your town, and so I'm familiar with the downtown a little bit, and I took a trip to the pagoda. So I'm a little, I'm not an expert, but I've been there and it's a lovely part of the state. So thanks for having us. As Erin mentioned, I'm Kelly Verrill, and my colleague Kurt will be speaking in a little bit. Our contact information is up here, so please feel free to reach out to us at any point, and we'll end our presentation with this information as well. So if you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to email us or follow up with, we'd be happy to hear from you. So a little bit of background on our public markets program. We started the program in 1987 at Project for Public Spaces. Over the course of the program's 34 years, our work has engaged in the field of public markets in a variety of ways. We've worked with over 70 communities to develop new public markets and revitalize existing markets. And our work has involved everything from community engagement, stakeholder facilitation, design, budgeting, and operations and management. In addition to projects, the Public Markets Program has a strong events and education component, including our International Public Markets Conference, which was last held in London in 2019, and our biannual How to Create Successful Markets training course. Additionally, we've published a number of reports and handbooks to help market operators and stakeholders in their market operations and management, and partnered with several foundations to advance access to farmers markets in low-income communities, particularly positively impacting food security and vendor opportunities. So that's just a little bit of background about like the last 34 years and kind of where we are in terms of this new initiative, which we call Market Cities, which we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. Before I go much further, though, I always like to spend a little bit of time just focusing on that term, public market. What does that mean? Often this term is used to describe an indoor permanent market building, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'll actually be using it as an umbrella term covering all types of markets, from open air temporary markets such as farmers markets, permanent structures such as the Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia, and even flea and craft markets. But not every agglomeration of retail is a public market. A public market is less about what products vendors are selling and what type of structure they're selling it in, and it is more about these three key elements. The first is that it has public goals, meaning that the market benefits the community in tangible ways. The second is that it operates in public space, that the market is open and welcome to the entire community. And the third is that they serve locally owned and operated businesses. And this is what truly makes them stand out from most other retail, like a shopping mall. Markets should feel unique to their respective locations, and the way they do that is achieved by featuring local vendors. So ultimately, a public market should reflect its community, be for the community, and be by the community. So public markets have been society's first public space. They were really society's first public space. In many countries around the world, markets are still the primary source of goods. Historically, the United States was no exception. And almost every town and city had their own market, and even multiple markets. And while some of these historic markets are still operating, such as the one we see today here, the Faneuil Hall Market in Boston, many unfortunately are long gone. There are still approximately 100 historic market buildings still standing in the US. Some are still operating as public markets, such as the West Side Market in Cleveland, while others have been repurposed into other uses. An example of this is the Old Union Market in St. Louis, Missouri. As you can see on the left, it was once a vibrant market in a really beautiful building. Fortunately, the building still stands, but it is no longer a market. Following the market, it became a bus terminal, and now it is a hotel. Your own city has its own version of this market history in the South Reading Market House, located at the corner of, forgive me, I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly, Bingham Street and, I kid you not, Market Alley. This market hall, which was one of several in the city, was constructed in 1870. After a period of time as a public market serving South Reading, it became the home of an import business, then a bingo hall, then a shade store, until it sadly burned down in 2005. Now that location is the home of a Family Dollar. So you might be asking, why should you care about these public markets, especially in light of the fact that we kind of lost a lot of them post-World War II. We sort of moved away from that model of shopping and experiencing space with commerce, and more towards the kind of modern model of supermarkets and now, like, of course, online and delivery. I'm sure each of you, though, can think back to a time when we were traveling, right, to another city or a country where you visited one of their markets, and you probably felt like you were experiencing the real culture of that place. Or maybe you regularly visit your local farmer's market now, both for fresh produce and for the chance encounter you might have with a neighbor you haven't seen in a while. Public markets are special for all of those reasons. However, after years of research and on-the-ground engagement, we at PPS know that along with the warm, fuzzy feeling you may get from being in a market, there are actually clear community benefits, including providing economic opportunity, renewing downtowns and neighborhoods, bringing people together, creating active public space, linking rural and urban economies, and probably the most important in this day and age, promoting public health. Despite the value that public markets bring to people, cities, and their economies, they are endangered by a combination of many forces. These constant and immediate threats include increasing urban development and value of real estate, the modernization and centralization of food systems, economic development practices that neglect women, minority populations, and other small entrepreneurs, and the lack of management capacity of the markets themselves. Both the global north and the global south face these external and internal threats, but they play out differently in each global region. Even in the US, where we've seen exponential growth over the last 30 years, markets are under threat. In the last several years, the number of markets has declined, which is not in and of itself a cause for alarm, but these declines are paired with anecdotes of lower sales and a plateau of investment in management capacity and infrastructure. So how does Market Cities address these threats, and what can we do about it? By strengthening connections between markets, as well as connections between markets and other relevant groups with common interests, such as city policymakers, small business advocates, et cetera, we can bring about new infrastructure, policies, and investments in public market systems on the scale of towns, cities, regions to maximize advances in health, livelihoods, and equity. This initiative was formed in the fall of 2019 and is a partnership between Project for Public Spaces, Healthbridge Foundation of Canada, and Slow Food International. The purpose of this alliance between these three organizations is to bring expertise and experience from both the global north and global south to this effort. The need for this type of effort is even more stark following COVID-19. In the first few weeks of the pandemic, markets exercised agility and ingenuity in the face of social distancing measures and other public health restrictions. At the same time, it's important to note that emergence of the pandemic has threatened markets in new ways and quickly revealed the weaknesses of public market systems, weaknesses that could lead to even more serious consequences in the future. In the global north, the pandemic quickly revealed a lack of strong public policy support for markets from city, region, or state provincial governments. For example, many markets in North America were not deemed essential services and were closed, despite the important role they play in food access and their demonstrated ability to adapt. Public market operating budgets have also been strained because of social distancing measures, which reduce the number of vendors in market and therefore market operating income. In a recent nationwide survey conducted by the Farmers Market Coalition, 74% of farmers markets indicated their incomes were lowered because of COVID-19, and 93% reported higher costs. For all of these reasons, we feel that this work is more important than ever in order to build better resilience for markets in face of future crises. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Kurt, who's going to walk us through the 7 principles of Market Cities.
Great, thanks, Kelly. So one early goal of the Market Cities partners was to identify the best practices that define existing successful market city strategies. So as we mentioned before, our last 2 international public markets conferences were in London and Barcelona, and these cities have adopted holistic strategies for their entire public market systems. So after doing some more digging into the innovative practices that we're seeing in these places, we identified the following 7 key principles. Principle 1, a market city includes a wide variety of types of markets in a city as part of one market system. So different types of markets include everything from central wholesale markets to food and non-food markets, such as flea or craft markets, as well as informal markets or clusters of street vendors. A market city organizes a diverse coalition of partners and stakeholders who collaborate and take action together to achieve common policy objectives. So market cities require participation from market operators and managers, local community organizations, as well as city and regional governments, to name a few. A market city measures the value of its markets and understands how they function. So they understand the supply chains for public markets, the quality of the market's physical facilities and public spaces, the economic, social, and public health impacts of the markets, and they also measure the needs and wants of vendors and customers. A market city has distribution networks that prioritize and support healthy, affordable, and safe food and other goods produced in the region. So these networks provide the physical facilities necessary for storage, processing, and distribution, But they also provide the organizational capacity to connect urban and rural producers and customers. A market city regularly invests in its market facilities and the management skills of market operators. So different investments include renovating existing markets, building new markets to meet demand on an as-needed basis, and ensuring that market managers have the skills and staff needed to operate the market efficiently and resiliently. A market city helps diverse types of vendors start and grow their businesses. So types of assistance include helping vendors, and we argue that especially those groups that have been historically and systematically discriminated against or marginalized, start a new business, innovate, or expand an existing one with new services and products. They provide vendors with equipment, services, and training they need to follow food safety practices, and they provide training and technical help to improve sales for vendors. Principle 7, a market city recognizes that its markets are also public spaces that welcome different kinds of people and maintain important cultural heritage. So they support this role of markets by creating public gathering spaces within the markets that encourage social mixing. They also invest in the design and physical infrastructure of public spaces around the market or within the surrounding district so that they are safe, accessible, and attractive. And they also program special cultural events and activities, especially those around healthy diets and safe food. So the Market Cities Initiative recognized that we needed to ground theory and practice. The guiding principles I just went over are only helpful if there are clear and practical strategies for applying them. So back in January 2020, the initiative partners set out to engage different cities in a Market Cities process. And the goal of these projects was to explore how a systems approach could better support public market systems, identify a set of recommendations unique to different cities, types of cities in different market contexts. So the cities we selected were chosen through an interview process with market leaders who responded to a global market survey we put out in January 2020. We chose Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Toronto, 3 cities that are quite different from each other in terms of geography, market types, and the strength of existing market connections and leadership. This actually made for a really perfect cohort for this pilot effort to kind of understand how this process impacts different types of places. Our work with them began in March 2020, just as the pandemic was sending the nation into lockdown. So that obviously impacted our process a bit in light of the pandemic. We organized weekly calls with the 3 partners in each city to discuss how the pandemic was impacting them and their market systems and explore how the initiative could best support them in light of new challenges they were seeing. These calls turned into a really important space for the lead organizations in each city to support one another and share different strategies they were taking to tackle common challenges. One activity which was included in the original scope that we were still able to achieve was to collaboratively develop a survey to distribute to all market operators in the cities to gather kind of baseline market data on their market systems. And then those survey results were analyzed and market locations were mapped along with other demographic data to uncover possible social or political implications of the market spread. In the process of gathering data and uncovering findings, we organized presentations and calls with other local partners in each of the cities to garner feedback and identify possible areas for future collaboration. So to conclude our work, we asked each of the 3 cities to pull together a final report that provided recommendations on how to achieve the 7 Market Cities principles. And the purpose of that was to have a document that the cities could share with municipal leaders, potential funders, and new partners, as well as others. And then based on the findings and recommendations from each city, we at PPS were able to identify high-level takeaways and develop some common strategic actions for other cities to learn from. So we don't have time to discuss the outcomes of all 3 cities, but we did want to share a bit more detail about the process we went through. So we'll just focus on Seattle as a case study. So Seattle is home to the iconic Pike Place Market, which is one of the largest public markets and market districts in the US. If you've been to Seattle, you've probably visited it. It has a network of 16 neighborhood farmers markets operated by 4 different entities. Due to rapid development, changing demographics, income inequality, shifts in public funding, and the competitive landscape of local food in the hometown of Amazon, they're both opportunities and challenges for farmers markets. The Market Cities process was led by Seattle Neighborhood Farmers Markets, along with other local partners listed. And at the time that Seattle applied to work with us, they had an existing informal network among the market operators and relatively strong relationships with the city of Seattle. But COVID, you may recall, hit Seattle pretty hard early on, and the city's response was a complete shutdown of the city, including farmers markets. So all of a sudden, they were no longer an essential service, and this pointed to the need for greater municipal policy support. Because of Seattle's relatively strong underlying partnerships between market operators in the city, they were able to collect survey data from all farmers markets, but they did have difficulty engaging with other types of markets in this work. So again, going back to that first principle, we see all markets being included as part of one market system. So building on those relationships with other types of markets was identified as a next step for them. The surveys we collected from the markets explored everything from vendor demographics to the organizational structure of market management, to the type of site they operate on, as well as the types of local government agencies that they regularly work with. So once we had the survey data, we were able to analyze it and map the results. We wanted to share a few examples of the types of maps we created for Seattle. In this map, the little yellow dots are the markets and the teal rings represent 10 to 15-minute walk distances around each, approximately. Things get really interesting when you add other types of data. So the dark purple here shows the racial and social equity index, which is open data that the city of Seattle collects. The dark purple shows areas that are higher priority or more disadvantaged, and the lighter purple are lower priority areas or more advantaged. So with this visualization, you can see pretty easily which Seattle residents may be experiencing more limited food access, fresh food access, and also which markets might be under-resourced because of where they operate. So the main takeaway here is that combining data on market operations with location can give you a better understanding of what is required to operate in a disadvantaged area, and help you know what to ask for in terms of resources from the city or other sponsors. So these asks might include funding for incentives and promotion, redirected public transit, free or reduced rent for markets, among other things. And then when you add other points of interest, it can be a really great way to reveal easy opportunities for collaboration between markets and other groups with similar missions and goals. So this map includes hospitals, community-based organizations, and nutrition incentive and WIC clinic partners. With the 10 to 15-minute walk distances around each, you can also get a clear sense for kind of the geographic spread of resources throughout the city, and better advocate for local partnerships. So the city of Seattle's key findings were that the farmers markets are unevenly distributed throughout Seattle, and that days of operation are more frequent in neighborhoods with populations who are English speaking, have higher levels of education, and earn greater incomes. Markets are full, which has decreased opportunities for Black, immigrant, or minority-owned businesses to access markets. Markets don't have secure tenure at their sites, making them extraordinarily vulnerable to the pressures of development, land transfer, or the revocation of permits. Market organizers coordinate independently with more than 8 city and county departments responsible for permitting, traffic planning, neighborhood outreach, and food policy. So it's pretty difficult to navigate this bureaucratic system. And despite what they thought were strong relationships with the city, COVID and the timing of the Market Cities project highlighted just how much farmers markets lack the political and policy support required to ensure their future. So our partners in Seattle are already really seeing some really great outcomes, and we're really excited to see how they continue to strengthen their partnerships. After finishing our work together, the partners used the data they collected to advocate for the creation of a position in the Office of Economic Development to support farmers markets. The city approved it this past fall and designated $58,000 for the position, so this person has the explicit role of serving as a local government liaison with farmers markets, which we hope will streamline permitting and other approvals that will make it easier for markets to operate. And the city has also passed a statement of legislative intent that requires city departments to review existing and proposes new legislation to strengthen farmers markets. And they're also going to conduct a racial equity analysis as part of this statement of intent. So as we mentioned before, Seattle had an existing informal network among the market operators, and the network decided to revisit their cooperative agreement from 2015 in order to find ways to strengthen their ongoing collaboration. So they really saw the value and benefit of strengthening their relationship between market operators after completing their work with us. So I'm going to pass it back to Kelly.
Hi, Kelly, you're muted.
Thank you, Erin. It's like the most popular sentence ever said in the last year and a half. Okay, so we wanted to end our presentation with a few key first steps that communities can take if they want to become a market city. And these first steps were the kinds of, it was sort of information that we learned in engaging with these 3 cities during the pilot projects. Next, thank you. So as we mentioned earlier, a market city needs involvement from all different types of markets, as well as advocates and local government. The most likely champions of this work are the folks who actually manage and operate markets. These are the folks who best understand the challenges as well as the benefits of markets. In our pilot projects, we saw that it was easier to engage farmers markets in this work. These folks in the US, at least, tend to have stronger informal connections to the market world than, say, craft markets or flea markets. And some of that may have to do with the fact that there are some pretty strong existing kind of trade associations or advocacy groups that are working on their behalf. And so they've gotten kind of used to working with each other, whereas others are pretty independent in terms of how they're operating. But we think that all markets stand to gain from a larger coordinated advocacy effort, and that this is especially true post-COVID. Markets of all types are facing similar challenges, such as increased expenses to comply with public health requirements and a loss of stall fees due to fewer vendors and or less vendor space. Building an inclusive market cohort is a critical first step to fully understanding shared challenges and opportunities and identifying opportunities to pool resources. So building this initial cohort could take the form of organizing a few informal calls or meetings, or it could take place in an existing local or regional market conference. It could also be paired with another opportunity market operators are already likely to be involved in. If there's interest, you could start working toward the next step of collecting the baseline data through market surveys. So in order to know how to tackle the challenges that your markets may face, you need data to be able to hone in on challenges and opportunities specific to your context. Pulling this baseline data through surveying the current market landscape of an area is critical initial first step in knowing what to ask or advocate for when you're talking with various stakeholders. Maybe most importantly, data and data visualization can be generated through the survey results is really valuable in grabbing the attention of local government, which then can lead to real policy change. These are just a few examples of the maps that we created for our Toronto pilot project, and they really help tell the story of how markets overlap with other issues important to government, such as equity, health, and economic opportunity. So again, building a local cohort and working together to collect the baseline data on markets are some initial key steps that can be taken to start this Market Cities work. So thank you for your time. I'm going to share actually in the chat a link to our website just because it's easier to sort of link that way. And Kurt and a colleague of ours at HealthBridge actually created some really good kind of how-tos for getting started on surveying and mapping. So I'll share links for that as well. But, you know, we really are looking forward to hearing from the other speakers. And again, we want to thank the Berks Alliance and Aaron and others for having us today. And we look forward to a discussion later. So thanks.
Kurt and Kelly, thank you so much. That was really awesome information. And I think there's a lot of applicable pieces for our community. And so with that in mind, as part of the forum today, I wanted to have some of our urban market operators talk about what they're doing in the Greater Reading community and the city of Reading. So first up is Christy Campley. I hope I said that right, Christy. She is the new owner of Growing Roots Partners, which manages the West Reading Farmers Market alongside the West Reading Borough and Community Revitalization Foundation. Christy has a background in hospitality and food and beverage, which along with her personal passion for sustainable agriculture and local food led her to become a farmers market manager. And she's actually managing a market today, so which is awesome. After spending the last 5 years working with, for, and alongside farmers, and as an avid farmers market goer herself, she's glad to have this opportunity to participate closely in the local food movement of Berks County by way of the West Reading Farmers Market. Hailing from neighboring Chester County herself, she is excited to get to know this community and the people that make it such a great place for local food. Thanks, Christy, for being with us today.
Thanks, Erin, and thanks everyone for having me. I just wanted to give a little disclaimer. I'm actually managing a market right outside right now, so I apologize if there's any feedback, or I'm actually in a cafe. And I will have to hop off after I present. So I'm going to leave my email in the chat in case anyone wants to get in touch. So I apologize, I can't hang out to answer any questions, but thank you for having me here today. And I'm really excited, like Erin said, to be part of this community. I just actually recently took over the business for the previous owner. So I'm newer to the market and to the area. I grew up in Chester County, so not far, but newer to Berks County in general. So I'm really excited to work with everybody. And I'm just going to kind of give everyone a little bit of background about the market. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So the West Reading Farmers Market is located at the intersection of 6th Ave and Penn Ave in West Reading. So actually, typically we are on the 500 block of Penn Avenue. So it's kind of a unique market setup. At least for me, I've never really attended or managed a market that is actually on the city block. So it's pretty cool. We shut down the one side of the street and the vendor set up along Penn Avenue. And that's kind of the main avenue in West Reading where all the shop owners and merchants are. So the tents are set up kind of facing the merchants and the shops for anyone that's not familiar. And then we kind of continue on into the next block as well for overflow. We have this year we'll have close to 20 vendors in total. Not all of them are full-time vendors. In years past, we'd had up to 25 vendors at the market on the avenue. And this year, because of COVID, we did move our location slightly to the neighboring block on 6th Ave. And we kept it smaller and kept it to essential foods. As we're kind of moving into the spring, we are expanding a little bit. We're going to move back onto Penn Avenue, which gives us more space to work with. And we'll have anywhere between 11 to 17 vendors each week at the market. We have quite a few full-time vendors that are there every week, and then some that rotate in and out monthly or every other week. So we are a year-round outdoor market. From May until December, we're there every week on Sundays. And then from January through April, we're there every other week. So in the winter markets, we go every other week, but we do remain outside in the elements, in the cold. This year was quite the year with the snow, and we were able to make it work. I think we only had to cancel one market. So we had like an unprecedented year for snow this year, which was fun, but you know, that's kind of the comes with the territory of an outdoor year-round market. And a lot of our vendors and our shoppers are so loyal and understanding and flexible with postponements and location moving. So we made it work this year, and it was fun for me as a first-year market manager to learn about all of that. The market has been in existence about 15 years. I actually couldn't get an answer from anyone of the exact year that it started, but somewhere between 2006 and 2008. I own Growing Roots Partners, which manages the market, but it is technically put on by the West Reading Borough and the West Reading Community Revitalization Foundation. So I work in tandem with them, and I've basically been brought on to manage the market, but we all work on it together, which is great, you know, for the community and for me as the market manager to have that support of the borough and the Community Revitalization Foundation. They've been really integral in our existence of the market, but also especially for me as I'm, you know, just starting out and learning the ropes. They've been really helpful with that. So I really appreciate working with them and just getting to know the community better that way. Just a little bit about our vendor selection and balance. I think that a healthy vendor balance is kind of one of the most important things for a successful market of our nature, at least. One of our most, I would say, important focuses for this market and for Growing Roots as a whole is that we're increasing or we're keeping an eye on basically the local products that are used. So we put a big push on our vendors being producer only and also using locally made products. So pretty much everything that's sold at our markets is either grown, raised, or made by the vendors themselves. And then anything that is a value added product or a prepared product, we do put, you know, we do try to encourage our vendors to use local ingredients as much as possible. So whether that's local grains for bread, local grains for pasta, things like that, just trying to put the focus on local agriculture in the area because we're so lucky to have so many amazing farms and products and opportunities to use local ingredients in food in Berks County. So that's one of the most important things, I think, for me and for the success of our market is that we're being transparent about where the food is coming from, that it's coming from the producers, and we're supporting those smaller producer-only vendors that really have, you know, they put a lot of pride in their product and that they've grown and raised themselves. And so our application process to bring on vendors is pretty standard. We have an application, we accept applications pretty much all year round. And the way we choose vendors to come onto market is basically, like I said, to keep that healthy mix of vendors. So we always try to have 3 to 4 produce vendors, one being an orchard during the season. And then we try to have local beef, pork, chicken, and eggs at our market, which we do now, as well as a local cheesemaker, dairy, or creamery. A local bakery has been a very integral part of the market as well. It seems to be a big draw to the market. And then we have our value added or our prepared foods. So pasta is Italian. We have a local coffee roaster, local honey, and a few other value added products like kombucha, juice, spices. And then we'll typically have a brewery, distillery, and or winery. And during the season, we'll have a cut flower farmer. And so that's kind of how our market balance works best and has been successful for the West Reading market, as well as all of our markets with Growing Roots. As far as management goes, as you can see, that's kind of, we're a very small organization. So I'm on site to manage all of our markets. And in West Reading, it's unique. I do have a market manager, which has been very crucial to that market as well. Kendra has been with us, I think about 5 years. She's a local woman in West Reading, and she was a market goer herself. And she's up there every week with us. She is part of the community, lives in the community, and is a great kind of liaison to our shoppers between the market and our shoppers, and knows everybody by name, and has been really helpful also for me to get to know everyone. And I think that's a really important part of the market success is obviously our involvement in the community and staying close with people in the community and involved that way. I think just kind of to wrap it up, one of the questions Erin posed was if you could offer one piece of advice to a community contemplating starting a market, what would it be? I think my professional opinion is to involve someone or involve an organization who has done it before. I think one of the lessons that came out of COVID and in the Pennsylvania Farmers Market forums that we've been involved in this year with Penn State Extension is to run it like a business and then to treat it as such, because there's so much that goes into managing a farmer's market that I think, you know, someone that hasn't done it before might not realize. And it requires the dedication of a business. It requires the dedication of a professional, of someone with the knowledge and the management expertise to run it to be successful. And I think it's just so important to, you know, for markets in general to be run that way, because it really gives the community, it gives the vendors, it gives everyone the opportunity to have a successful community event and to support local agriculture and local food makers. And that's obviously what we want and why we're all here. So that's kind of my presentation on the West Riding Farmers Market. I don't know if anyone has any questions now, or I can leave my email in the chat box for anyone to ask.
Yes, Christy, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us while you are managing the market. I think I'm just going to ask you one question before you go. How does the West Riding Market manage or measure success? What's your measurement?
Yeah, so we actually, we do recommend, we can't force, but we do recommend that the vendors, we collect their income. So for each week, they are to submit their income for the market so that we can keep track of their successes individually. And then we also count, we basically do a head count. So there's no great way to really count the amount of people that are a farmer's market, but kind of the way we go about it is every 30 minutes, we do a count of how many heads are at the market. And we kind of use an average that way to track traffic. This year has been unique because we started accepting pre-orders, and as the managers, we actually collated the orders and collected them all from the vendors and distributed them. So we had a bigger hand in people that were ordering and shopping with us. So we were able to have actually better metrics that way based on people that were pre-ordering. So we're able to see how many unique shoppers, so basically anyone who placed a pre-order, and then how many total pre-orders. So that was actually how we measured the success of our markets this past year, which was really eye-opening. And it was a lot of work, but it was definitely necessary for COVID and great to get to know our customer even better.
Thank you. And like Dave said, in the chat box, we will send questions that we can't necessarily get to. And I know, Christy, you have to get back to managing the farmers market you're at. So, and then we'll follow up with the group with answers. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye. The next person I'm excited to introduce is Courtney Schober, who I have personally worked with very closely over the last 3 years, 4 years. I can't.
My fourth season. Yep. Our fourth season.
Courtney was born and raised in Berks County. After a decade in the music industry in the New York City metro area, her love of food, cooking, and helping others led her to a career change. In 2016, she earned her health coaching certification from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Courtney wears many hats. In addition to her health coaching practice, she assists with the admin and event planning as the Ag Project Coordinator for the Berks Agricultural Resource Network, or BARN, a nonprofit focused on advocating for agribusiness and encouraging consumer awareness about why supporting local farmers and producers is so important. As education coordinator at Farmhouse Kitchen, an organic farm-to-table cafe and restaurant in West Riding, she facilitates panels and speaking events that focus on raising awareness about supporting a healthy lifestyle. And she's deepened her health and wellness advocacy in the area, acting as the program chair of Downtown Wellness Berks. In addition to all of that, she is also the Penn Street Market manager over the last 4 years, and the market is managed by the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, where I work. So as we said, she's heading into her 4th season this summer, and we're all going to hear about Downtown Reading's Penn Street Market. Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here today with everyone. Let me share my screen. Just again, really happy to be here. Thanks everyone. Good afternoon. Just a little disclaimer, a lot of the pictures on this slideshow were from before the 2020 season. So I just wanted to mention that. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history. As Kelly mentioned, as an entity, Farmers Market in downtown Reading has been around for over 150 years. So, you know, people would haul in their edible goods from the rural areas and bring them in, including livestock. There were actually livestock kind of places that people could bring in their live animals for sale back in the day. So I wanted to go over a little bit about also the values. So the newest kind of iteration of Penn Street Market has happened in about the past decade, the last 10 years or so. And though it has been housed at multiple sites in the downtown area within kind of a 5 or so block radius, and administrative entities, different ones have managed and administered the market as a whole. The really cool thing I think about Penn Street Market is that the kind of spirit of the market has stayed the same, that the fundamental values have carried throughout the years. And those being, and especially this year, I kind of put it in the middle and made it a little bigger because promoting that healthy food access of locally sourced food in downtown Reading is really the key role the market has played, especially in this past year. But in addition to that, pre-COVID, we also, it's very important for us to cultivate a thriving seasonal event through entertainment, education, and community programming. This is a market for everyone. We want everyone to be a part of it. And we also find it very important to contribute to the revitalization of our downtown area, taking this public space and transforming it. As I said before, you know, in full bloom, the market is really a place that we want to celebrate our community and showcase all it has to offer, including all of our wonderful produce and locally sourced goods, local musicians. We also work a lot with community organizations, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, lately, the public health and nutrition education take the forefront, along with still continuing to have that economic opportunity for our local producers and businesses. So our location physically, we are located in downtown Reading, as I said. We hold the market every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and we are a seasonal market. So that is, we run June, the first Thursday of June through September. In past years, the end part of the market has varied a little bit. We've gone anywhere from the first week of September through the end of September, which we are planning to do this year. Let's see. So we continue to provide that fresh, healthy food, and nutrition education is also a huge aspect. We work very closely with our friends at the Food Trust. You'll hear from Alex a little later. And this is really an opportunity for one of the kind of issues of most urban locations is that not only the food access, but the awareness of nutrition education and the kind of rampant chronic disease that's caused by some of the food inequality and lack of access. So we love to be able to provide that. People get very excited about our Food Trust demonstrations when we were able to hold them pre-2020. Lined up and ready every hour on the hour, ready to learn. And we also offer a lot of really great food connected incentives to our shoppers. So we have SNAP available. We have Farmers Market Nutrition Program checks, which is run through WIC and Senior WIC. And then we also have our wonderful Berks Farm Bucks program, which I will only gloss over because Alex gonna do a deep dive into that. And that program has just blossomed since I've been helping with the market. It's really been fun to see it grow. Pre-pandemic, we really wanted to create a safe space to gather and engage the community. We had, along with the live music, we would have fitness demos, art and culture showcases. We worked with the Reading Museum. We worked with a wonderful cultural organization called Barrio Alegría. We had folks from the Goggleworks Art Center come out and do live ceramics throwing. We had live painting sessions. We had some fitness demos, things like we had a yoga instructor come in and do some yoga. We had Zumba. So all of these fun, and we had a lot of kids activities. So we would partner with local organizations and volunteers to have kids activities, anything from just coloring to making crafts. And that was always fun. It's an aspect I really, really miss of a market. And I hope that, in some future days, we'll be able to bring a lot of these aspects back. We also had a couple of kind of themed days. We had an environmental awareness day where we called organizations that were specifically clued into some of those topics to come and share their information with the community, and also a wellness day, which was I was a little biased on that one, but I had a lot of great connections to bring into the city to expand on the nutrition education and talk about other forms of wellness. And then on top of that, our normal community organizations, a lot of nonprofits, just to let people know all the wonderful resources that are available in our city. So layout and products. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we're set up. So Penn Street Market is an independent entity. So it has been administered for the past 4 years that I've been helping by the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance. And unlike some markets, we don't have a board of directors or anything like that. So we have a manager, myself, and then work very closely with a lot of our neighboring organizations. GRCA and Aaron specifically helps out a lot with a lot of the administration tasks. The finance team at GRCA helps out a lot, help with sponsorships and funding, and then also the bulk of our marketing and promotional efforts. And then kind of I handle all of the planning, the vendor recruitment, all the paperwork for the vendors, figuring out the layout and the site, how that works, all of those kinds of things. And then collectively, we have been supported by, in varying degrees over the years, the Food Trust is huge. They're a cornerstone. Penn State Health, St. Joe's, I saw Lisa on the call. She's also a huge aspect. So our local, public health community partners. The Friends of the Reading Hospital, who fund our Berks Farm Bucks. The Reading Downtown Improvement District through till last season have been a huge aspect with helping with our operations and our infrastructure. The Reading Parking Authority, who, when we had to move locations halfway through last year because of our event permit being pulled, was generous enough to offer us one of their parking lots to continue the season, which was we were very happy. We were kind of scrambling to figure things out, but it really worked out for us, and we were excited to be able to continue the season last year. The city of Reading as a whole, despite the hiccup with COVID, I understood their point of view, but have been a very big support system in getting us all we need for our paperwork and helping the public works, helping us with our electricity and all of the things we need to help run the market. Let's see. So a little bit about our vendors. We have, one more thing about location. We are a mix of residential and business. So no matter where in that kind of 5-block radius we've been in the past years, we have our senior towers, which are very close, which older residents are a very big section of people that we serve at our market. Also, moms with small children But we also have subsidized apartments nearby. Government and municipal buildings are only a couple blocks away. Human services organizations, other community-based organizations that have their headquarters in that downtown business area. Small businesses, and then a couple larger corporate offices are in the vicinity. So those are all people that shop at our market, but our focus and the predominant shoppers are residents of the city. And produce vendors. So we have some wonderful produce vendors, and we actually did kind of downsize this past season because of COVID. We did, as Christy mentioned, we kind of said, okay, our produce and our food is going to be essential. So we're going to really focus on that. And we have some really wonderful produce vendors in, we have here featured, we have Country Lane Produce and Poultry. Unlike Christy, like Christy, we do have a huge focus on local sources, but because our demographic is a bit different, even though we're only about a mile away, actually kind of less than Christy's market, just right across the Penn Street Bridge, it's kind of like being in a different world sometimes. So we aren't exclusive to producer onlys, though all of our produce vendors do have some producer only products at their stands. Some of them do source in other local products, and sometimes other products, because of our demographics. A lot of our shoppers really love their fruit and sometimes their tropical fruit. So we always have a little section available for that, because it draws people to the market. And then though we have, they can get their bananas and maybe a pineapple, but then there's a whole huge table of locally grown veggies that we can encourage people to buy, especially with our food demos. And then so Donna here, she almost works as a little mini co-op of her own, where she does source in other farmers and make sure she covers all her bases with her produce. We also have a lot of value added goods at our market. So we have, over the past few years, had different versions of the barn. We've been calling it this past year the barn pantry table. It has had fresh produce over the years, but in order to kind of simplify things a little bit and make sure we could have products come back out from week to week, we actually decided we were going to make it shelf stable things only. So in the past, we have had individual vendors. As you see here, we have Funny Farm Apiaries. They're a great honey vendor, which were very popular when they were at market. And then also Love and Spoonful. Amy's here with her flavored olive oils and vinegars. And Rodale Institute, who is also one of our anchor produce vendors that we were very excited to have back last year. Also brings some value added goods in their coffee. They also bring locally made cheese, and also Daily Loaf bread, which is the same bread maker and baker that Christy has at her market. And I was very happy to have that bread at our market. And then we also have prepared food at our market. So we do have some food trucks that are some favorites. We've had tacos in the past. We also, in 2019, had Kula Kamala. They are a local yoga ashram, but they have a vegan kitchen built in, and we decided we would invite them to have some options for people who didn't necessarily want some meat. So they brought some vegan baked goods and like one easy dish, like they did some things like pasta salads and things like that. So that was fun to have them as well. The food trucks and the prepared items are typically more popular amongst the kind of the business oriented people, or the people that are the folks that are in the offices that come out for lunch. We always try to encourage them to also go home with veggies. Sometimes that works. But really that focus is on our food, our healthy food and food access. And as far as vendor recruitment, it really depends. We do have kind of our set list of anchors, but then we're always open to new vendors. I like to think of the market a little bit as an incubator spot for new places, as long as they kind of have everything as far as their business license and their food safety certifications and things like that. We love to invite new places that maybe haven't sold before, including farmers, to just give them a chance to be at a market like this and see how it goes. And we're pretty flexible as far as, you don't have to sign on for a whole season every week. We can do that rotation, and it's very much a case-to-case basis with our vendors. So we try to work with them individually to try to make it work the best for them. The team, which is very important. Like I said, we are kind of this independent entity, and we recruit our staff and other support systems, like I said, from local organizations. The Food Trust right there in the middle, great crew, love those guys. And then on the right there, you'll see the Downtown Improvement District setting up. That was for the 2020 season when we had our crowd barriers and our one-way traffic. And then on the left, some of our superstar volunteers from the community. We also work with CareerLink, which is a local organization that takes people from temps to people getting their GED and helps place them at different job sites. So we've also worked with them over the years. Also community volunteers, and a huge part has been Alvernia, our partnership and collaboration with Alvernia, which is right down the street. They have Bog Turtle Creek Farm, which is a student-run farm who's not only has served as a vendor. They were in one of the previous pictures. They usually have one table with a few things, but people still love to support them. And the students have been such an asset, especially last year. They were a huge help with volunteering, with setting up, breaking down, kind of being some of my helpers, very important. And then we also have some, what we've been calling our market ambassadors. So those are kind of like our superstar every week shoppers who, especially with COVID and moving locations, word of mouth is such a huge deal for Penn Street Market. It's really, even though we have a Facebook page and we've done newsletters in the past, it's really our most useful form of communication. We have those superstar ambassadors who just tell everyone, and they go back to their buildings, and I've heard stories of them literally knocking on doors and telling people. We also have a street team in Barrio Alegria, who I talked about before, who helps us promote the market and spread news when we need it. Criteria for success. So Aaron had asked me which of the following did I believe was the most important for success. I think it's a very much a combination of things. So the location in the community, obviously we're very, when we're on Penn Street, which we have been other than the last half of last season, we're very visible to traffic, very easy to walk to, in the middle of everything going on, both residential and business. So I think that is a key factor to our success, that accessibility and visibility. And then just being a constant point of access, being that openness of people to come and get food, just having that available is also really useful. And then being able to showcase those resources that are available to the community, I think draws people as well. And when we do have all those fun things going on, it really can be a draw to our community, and we really want to engage and get people excited and really kind of heighten that sense of true community. It's really our goal. But really, to me, as the market manager, success to me means happy shoppers and happy vendors. And we try to go by that. We do, not last year, but in previous years, we have done customer surveys and vendor surveys just to see how we're doing, what we could be doing better to improve ourselves. We're always working towards that. As you can see in some of these pictures, there's our cart, our SNAP cart. We have some of our community organizations that come out and just tell people what's available. So this is a good showcase of that. And then the other question that Aaron posed was thinking of, are you thinking of starting your own market, and what advice would be? And for me, in my 3 going on 4 years as a manager of Penn Street Market, it's really about building a strong team. No market is an island. So the collaboration to me and the joining of forces with local organizations and entities that share a common mission and vision and common goals for the greater community is just essential. It's really important to create that and foster that sense of community. That's kind of our cornerstone and our basis foundation that we're built upon. And then within that structure, working to build upon and utilize all the resources, skill sets, and communication networks that are available to you. So it's kind of when everyone comes to the table and just sharing and communicating and seeing who can do what to optimize everything for everyone involved, so that mutually beneficial relationships are formed. And then, you know, when you have people from different backgrounds, that it gives you expansive ideas. Different experiences and expertise bring different perspectives. So it helps you to improve when you're not just stuck in a rut or only seeing with blinders on. So it's great to keep it diverse when you're talking about advisory and support. And we always have we strive to do that for Penn Street Market. So we're always looking to grow and engage. So that's another thing, not being stagnant, like always looking at what's next and how to be better and improve. So those would be some of my advice. Just wanted to highlight the picture in the upper right-hand corner. The ones earlier in the slideshow were at our home at the 400 block. And this was our temporary second half of the season location at 6th and Cherry, which was this long block. So just to show you a little difference of the area and the spaces. And they're on the bottom row with all those chairs. That's one of our nutrition education demos. And on the left there, those are the veggies from the Reading, or the Fight and Fills. And they come to visit us once or twice at least every summer. And then there's our food trust crew again. And that was this past summer. We just couldn't run the market without them. Can't say enough about them. And I will make that segue over to Erin to introduce Alex. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Courtney. We're really looking forward to the Penn Street Market season kicking off in June. I'm really excited to close out our forum today with a piece that I think really ties a lot of what we've been talking about together. And that's talking about some of the work that the Food Trust does, and specifically with the Burke's Farm Bucks. And Alexander Roche, most of us call him Alex, but he submitted Alexander, so I'm going to say that. He is the project manager for the Food Trust's Reading team. Alex has spent the last 3 years working in adult nutrition and education and community food development, helping to create a sustainable local food system for the Greater Reading area. He works with local health and food organizations to provide healthy local food access anywhere nutrition education is happening. Alex is a native to the Greater Reading area and graduated from Alvernia University in Reading, where he earned both a BS in biochemistry and a BS in forensic science. A former AmeriCorps Vista member, which is how I initially met Alex. He spent 2 years working on community food development project in Reading that included the revitalization of the Penn Street Farmers Market, the launching of a mobile food pantry, and the creation of a local food policy council in Reading. So Alex, take it away. Thank you.
Hey everybody, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up some slides. Full disclosure. Wait, did it work? I'm not gonna like even pretend like I'm great with technology. That's not.
We can see your screen, so you're good.
Great. That's awesome. So for those that don't know me, like Erin said, my name's Alex. I've worked with a lot of people on this screen, so it's great to see some encouraging faces and stuff like that. So I've been given the opportunity to talk about the Burke's Farm Bucks program today. So for those of you that don't know the Burke's Farm Bucks program, it'll give you a great outlook into what we've been working on the past 6 years in the city of Reading when it comes to creating economic viability for farmers markets and for produce vendors in the greater Reading area. So one of the major goals of the Burke's Farm Bucks program is connecting the fresh food network together. So part of the reason the Burke's Farm Bucks program was started was in the 2013 Reading, I think it was at the time Reading Hospital Community Health Needs Assessment. It was identified that about $2,000 was spent at farmers markets in the city of Reading and state and local benefit, federal, local, and state benefits. So when I say those things, that means things like the SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Access Program, which is provided to low-income families. WIC, which is the Women, Infant, Children Department, found at the Rockland Center now in Reading. The FNMP program, which is the Farmers Market Nutritional Program. Those are checks issued to both women, infant, children through the WIC department and also our seniors. So those over 65. And the major thing was only $2,000 of that pie was being spent in the city of Reading. So just kind of an outlook is in every zip code in the city of Reading, at least 50% of the population qualifies for SNAP benefits. And only $2,000 were being spent downtown. So, or in the city. So in 2015, as part of the revitalization plan for the Penn Street Market, actually Lucine Sahelnik, Councilwoman Lucine Sahelnik, who's on the call, is the original author of this program, requested funding working with the Friends of the Reading Hospital to create an incentive program that would help increase the economic viability of shoppers and economic viability of vendors at a downtown farmers market, that being the Penn Street Farmers Market. So since the creation of this program, we've worked very hard to expand the program, not only just looking at the downtown farmers market, but creating a concept that would increase and help with the economic viability of fresh food access throughout the whole city. So that led to our strategic partnership between the Penn Street Market, the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, and Penn State Health with the Friends of the Reading Hospital. So when I say the Berks Farm Bucks program, this is, oh, my slides are disorganized, it's fine. It's a great partnership that uses diverse funding from different levels to create an incentive program for shoppers in the city. So it helps not only give shoppers kind of more economic worth and stuff like that, but it also helps our vendors. So in this case, you can see that we use a lot of diversitized funding. At the federal level, we're utilizing things from CDC Reach. So our partners at Penn State provide funding through something called the VeggieRx program, which provides, provides patients with essentially prescriptions for fresh fruits and vegetables. We use something called the GusNIP program, which is a SNAP match program, and then also SNAP Ed funding. And as we kind of work down, you can see how it works out. So how this led to us kind of creating a vision and a mission to essentially support those in the community that need it the most. And in particular, we identified that children, expecting mothers, those that are sick or ill or with disease, and seniors were the most vulnerable communities in the Greater Reading area. So what do we do, right? So the big idea is that we create and help to create opportunities throughout the whole city for year-round opportunity to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. So you can do this in a bunch of different ways, but since 2015, we've not only just added the Penn Street Farmers Market back, but we've helped create 19 different locations throughout the city year-round where people can shop for fresh fruits and vegetables. And to earn Berks Farm Bucks, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. The first is by using federal benefits like the SNAP program. So at most of these locations, any shopper that spends $5 on at least $5 on fresh fruits and vegetables through SNAP will get an additional $2 to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables. They can also spend their WIC or FNMP checks. So that program runs from June to November every year. And every time they spend those checks, they actually get an additional $4. So in particular for seniors, they receive these checks once per summer. And right now they receive 4 $6 checks, which is $24. Through this program, it helps increase that benefit from $24 to $40. And I think for a senior in an income low income level in a house of one, it really does increase the spending power of what they can use those for. But also the WIC program, which for those that don't know, is our expecting mothers and mothers with young children. So they actually receive these benefits monthly. So potentially, depending on the number of children in your family and your economic level, you could be receiving, I mean, a significant amount of cash to help kind of endorse and influence your family's fruits and vegetable consumption. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Sorry. Another way you can earn Berks Farm Bucks is through educational opportunities. So one of the biggest things I find about nutrition education is we tend to teach nutrition education, but not give people the access and affordability to go with it. So for instance, that's like teaching someone how to drive, but not giving them car keys to use a car. So one of the big key components of the Berks Farm Bucks program is partnering education with food access opportunity. So anytime you see a food trust cooking demo or nutrition lesson, or now we're actually expanding into partners, we're actually partnering with Penn State Health St. Joe's, where they're distributing these same things through their diabetes education program. You receive funds to then spend directly on fruits and vegetables. And like I said, a key component to this whole program is that it unites education with food access opportunity. So these educational experiences are happening at farmers markets, farm stands, and corner stores, which all participate in the Berks Farm Bucks network. And then the last component is my favorite, is the shopping component. So where can you spend these? So you've now earned Berks Farm Bucks. Our goal was to create kind of a cohesive system throughout Reading, where these bucks could be used when people need it and how and when people needed it. So right now, we're working with 2 farmers markets, the Penn Street Farmers Market and the Fairgrounds Farmers Market, where people can redeem Berks Farm Bucks. There's 6 community farm stands that happen on a yearly basis that the Food Trust work in coordination with partners. So for instance, we have one at Berks Encore, the Berks Community Health Center, Penn State Health St. Joe's hosts a farm stand every week, actually all year round. There's one at the WIC office in Reading, one at Centro Hispano, and the La Casa de Amistad, which is a senior center. And wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the last one's Berks Community Health Center, Oak Brook. So these opportunities happen year round. And if you can tell by the locations I just listed, a lot of them go back to influencing and helping get fresh fruits and vegetables into those vulnerable communities. We also partner with the Reading School District, and there's five monthly school farm stands that go on. Even throughout COVID, we've been diligent in still making sure opportunities are there for families to spend money on fresh fruits and vegetables right in their own communities. And the corner store network is our last component. So now, why would we include the corner store network? So if you didn't know this, because parts of Reading are food deserted, a lot of people shop within the corner store network in Reading and bodegas. So we actually have 6 corner stores that we're working with, that we've connected with local farmers to then increase the amount of fruits and vegetables coming from local farms into corner stores. That then also decreases the price per unit because they're shopping locally. And then also increases the amount of produce and opportunity kind of directly for those families. So that's I think I have 19 or 20 opportunities that we have year round that people can spend and earn these Berks Farm Bucks. So what has this program done? So since its beginning, there's actually been a 473% increase in spending of SNAP and FNMP checks throughout Reading. So most recently, we saw that over $45,000, close to $50,000 have been spent since 2015, utilizing the FNMP, WIC, or SNAP program in the city of Reading. If you include the Berks Farm Bucks program and the sponsorship from the Friends of the Reading Hospital as incentive, we actually see over a 900% increase in spending. In incentive spending in the city of Reading. And one of the greatest numbers, if anyone has looked into incentive programs throughout the nation, they tend to actually only average close to a 50–60% redemption rate. The Berks Farm Bucks program this year, and since its creation, has redeemed at a 90% rate. So that means the money that's being contributed to the program is not only getting out into the community, but is being spent by the community. And I think that comes a lot back to the education and access at the same time, allowing people to utilize their education right on site, and put to practice what they learn. Because I don't know anything about you, but for me, when I learn something, I want to put it into practice, and people do too. So that's one of the biggest components to this. Is it's not only increased other funds being used, other federal, state funds being used in our community, but it's also increased the desire and usage of fresh fruits and vegetables in our community, which in particular, because we utilize most of our vendors we utilize for these opportunities come from the Penn Street Market, and the Greater Reading community is putting money back into the local producers in our community. So here's some just great pictures of people utilizing the program, and I'm gonna send it right back to Erin to answer any questions and comments and stuff like that.
Alex, thank you so much. And to everyone today that spoke, and Christy, who's not here anymore. I really appreciate all of the knowledge and expertise that you shared with all of us today. And, you know, on a local level, it's really such an honor to work alongside our local market managers and also the Food Trust, and Lisa Weaver, who is on this call as well, as we've sort of expanded and evolved the Berks Farm Bucks network. So we have time maybe for one question, but as Dave promised, we will be sharing the questions which he has compiled with the presenters, and we will send out their answers if they are willing to answer with everybody that registered today for the event. So I'm just kind of going through. Dave, as you were compiling the questions, was there anything that really popped out at you? Because there are quite a few fabulous questions. And I was thinking, while we have the Project for Public Spaces folks, that maybe I would ask a question to Kelly and Kurt. Have you seen any market cities that have been scalable to the size of a city such as Reading, or even the Greater Reading community? So the city of Reading is, I would say, at about a population, I'm going to overestimate off of the last census, at 90,000 people. And the Greater Reading community has about 420,000 people at large. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Great question. So I'll be honest and say that I don't really think there is one city that is a perfect market city. We set out those 7 principles because we felt like they were aspirational. They're all important in their own way, and we want to create kind of a network and a group working toward achieving those in their own individual locations. But even cities like Barcelona and London, where we held our last 2 conferences around the theme of market cities, probably are not hitting all 7 of those principles. So this is they're not meant to be like, oh my gosh, they can't do it, we can't do it. It's more kind of showing how important markets are, and how how much greater the impacts would be if we could be more systematic in terms of working together and achieving those 7 principles. So just to be very clear about that, the work, as I said, the whole initiative was really kind of formally launched in 2019. So we are really looking forward to the opportunity to work with more communities on projects like we did in Seattle, Toronto, and Pittsburgh. But those were our first. So they're just the 3 that we have the most information about right now. And they are bigger than Reading. But from the beginning of this initiative, we always the three partners always talked about how, even though the name was Market Cities, we wanted to make sure that people felt really welcome into the initiative, no matter where they were coming from, no matter the size of the population. And what that might mean is that the sort of geographic boundary of how you're working as market operators together to achieve common policies and investments in your markets may not fall under that like specific kind of city line or what have you. Like you may need to kind of look beyond. Even Pittsburgh as an example, a lot of the markets that were involved in this work in the cohort locally were actually outside of the city bounds. So we were thinking more metro area when we were thinking about that project. But I'm excited about the possibilities of working like even at a state level or a regional level. I think there are there's a lot that can be done. And, you know, you may have a town or a city that only has a couple of markets and that might not be enough, but you together are, you know, representing a whole area, several county area, let's say of your state, or if you're a really small state, you know, you might like actually have a statewide effort. So it's not a hard and fast must be within the city. And so I think we're getting started here with this work, and we're excited about the possibilities of working with different communities besides some of the larger metro areas that we have in the past.
Aaron, I'm going to cheat and inject a question before we close it up here. Kelly and Kurt, you mentioned that one of the risks for farmers markets, particularly in cities, is that as development occurs in those cores, the markets are at risk and can get driven out. And yet there are communities in Pennsylvania like Lancaster and Allentown, and to a lesser extent Harrisburg, that have used the farmers markets as an anchor for redevelopment. And I think there's some interest here in Reading about how could we build on what we already have in Reading to use the farmers market as a way of trying to help revitalize the downtown. Have you seen examples where people have had those challenges and been successful in keeping the market alive?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think that like using Seattle just as an example, I think, you know, Pike Place actually has a historic moment in the 70s where the city wanted to get rid of the market, I think to build parking lots, honestly. And they did a big save the market effort and were able to kind of show the actual economic benefit of the market for the city. And it, you know, saved the market essentially. So it certainly can be done. I think it's, you know, there are definitely a lot of examples of markets that have revitalized areas. One project we worked on about 10 or so years ago was the Nubo City Market in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which was a brand new market after a horrific flood that like devastated the downtown. And they were able to start a brand new market from scratch, sort of using the success of their local farmers markets. And it really brought back life to this one particular neighborhood outside of downtown Cedar Rapids. So it can certainly be done. I think that what can be sort of we can see is that a lot of markets can be oftentimes used as like the first thing that happens, and they'll be, you know, photographed and put in like real estate brochures and sort of promoted as what makes this a really fun place to live. And then they don't have, like, they might be working on a special event permit that they literally have to go after like every year. And they don't have real actual security in being there. And it can seem all of a sudden like a sort of nice to have, as opposed to the crucial element that kind of brought back the area. So I think that what we're trying to advocate for is not just like, it's like not just sort of saying we love our markets or our markets have like benefited us, but like putting policy into place that actually can support those markets. So, you know, putting together like real permitting systems for markets so that they're not special events, so that they're not having to like kind of go before city council or wherever every year and kind of ask for that support. And to say, you know, a good example of a market that was successful in doing this is actually Green Market. When I was working there in the early 2000s, they were finally, after decades literally of operating in the city, able to secure a 10-year agreement with the Parks Department to operate on Parks property. And at the time, about half of the markets were located on Parks property. And it was a huge relief. It may not have seemed like that big of a deal, but it was something that literally every year they were going back for. And every year we were concerned that what would be expected of us in terms of what we would owe for rent for that space might just kind of keep growing. And so the 10-year agreement gave security, like any business, right? Like it gave it the ability for us to invest in those markets and feel confident that they would be there for the long haul.
Well, thank you both. It was an excellent presentations. Courtney, what you've done in terms of the events has just been so exciting in terms of creative placemaking. So it is more than just the access to the food, it's access to vibrancy and diversity. And Alex, it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish. I want to thank you all for this. Erin, particularly want to thank you. You did a great job pulling this together and organizing it and running it. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
I also want to thank our audience for engaging and being here and listening to this. And hopefully this gives us some inspiration and some things we can do going forward. A reminder that we will send, as Erin's mentioned, we will send the questions to our presenters and get their responses and get that back out to everybody. You can find the video of this program on the Berks Alliance website at berksalliance.org. And we hope to see many, if not all of you, back here on May 20th when we learn about how our schools have responded to the COVID epidemic in very positive fashion. Thank you all. And with that, we will leave.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Great job.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting. Thank you.
Bye-bye.